Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Monday, June 8th, 2020. And boy, today is a bad day for President Trump. I will say that Donald Trump has pretty much defied all expectations as of right now in terms of how low the polling numbers can actually get for him. I was shocked, to say the least, to see that Joe Biden continued to increase his national lead. I know I made a video about it just a couple of days ago, but it doesn't get any better for President Trump. I really thought this was just a minimal type of convention type boost that lasts a couple of days, and it seems that Joe Biden is now beginning to increase his lead nationwide to 8% overall. The problem with this is because when you take a flashback 4 years ago, despite the amount of Trump supporters and Trump advocates that will say Clinton did lead in the polls, you are right. Hillary Clinton did lead in the overall national numbers. But the problem is, even in her peak, even when, August hit right after her convention, after the Republican convention, Trump started to lead, and then after her convention, she started to lead. The problem here is that Hillary Clinton never once, since she was declared the nominee, reached an 8-point margin nationwide. Now, this is a very telling sign that Hillary Clinton did lead by margins near 8%, but I will say around a year ago, nationwide polling data was not too kind for her. When we look at the numbers from, I guess you could say, today, June 8th, Hillary Clinton led by 3% nationwide. The next poll was by 10%, but that was around a week later, and then it went 7, 4, 9, 1. And around this time period, she was not polling too well. So I will say that looking at the overall flashback from a year ago, it is pretty surprising to find Secretary Hillary Clinton not doing too well against President Trump on this exact day. But I will say the fact that she did not even reach 8% means that he is already outperforming Hillary Clinton's margins. He has broken through the 50% number, at least rounded up, something Hillary Clinton rarely ever did the entire campaign season. If you take a look at these overall numbers, no candidate ever reached above 46.2% the entire, general election season. Sure, before she was the nominee, you could say that she did have a pretty substantial lead over Donald Trump. That's because people didn't even think of him as a real candidate. Obviously, back in December, when Biden was still in the running for the Democratic nomination against Senator Sanders, Senator Warren, a number of candidates then, it wasn't actually not much larger of a margin, around 1.8% of a difference between now. But I will say that since the general election has occurred, Joe Biden has had his high moments and had his low moments. This all of a sudden dip really... it's just important that Joe Biden has recovered back up to around that 50% number. Hillary Clinton never reached that in 2016. That was the unfortunate part about her campaign, was she was never able to get an overall majority of voters. She won the popular vote by a plurality, 48.2% to 46.1%. Her overall numbers really never reached a majority in a number of states that she won: New Hampshire, a number of other states. Same thing with Donald Trump. He won in states such as Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, not with a majority, but by a plurality of votes. And now, when we take a look at the popularity of President Trump, he is at his lowest approval rating in all of 2020. Since 2020 has began, he has not hit 41.1%, nearing 40%. There was a time period where Donald Trump was as low as he is now, roughly as low, 40% at some point in October. But I will say that, the disapprove and approve are starting to break apart. Back in November of 2018, the Democratic Party won the generic ballot by around 8% nationwide. When you think about that, Donald Trump's approval rating was -11. So there's around 3% of voters that may have disapproved of President Trump that voted for the Republican Party, assuming that all of these voters did end up voting. And a lot of the same people that were polling on Election Day and obviously in the polls, the likely voters are the same ones who voted on the generic ballot by around 8% nationwide. So this is not any type of good news for President Trump. When we're talking about Joe Biden's numbers, he is only continuing to increase. The most recent CNN poll shows Donald Trump losing to Biden, trailing Biden by an adjusted, the same as the actual results, 14% nationwide, 14%. I mean, it's so crazy to me that Joe Biden has even reached this type of lead, not even with a convention bump, nothing really as a result of Biden's campaign tactics, more so of what Donald Trump is doing. He is single-handedly handing himself a defeat on the presidential stage. Again, think about the things that you've heard about Joe Biden recently. Not much, to be completely honest. The mainstream media has been focusing on Donald Trump because, again, he is the leader. He is the one to handle these type of crisis situations. The coronavirus situation has all been impacting President Trump negatively now, and it looks like this is all just adding up to be horrible news for President Trump. And the problem with a lot of this these numbers now, they may not be super accurate 5 months from now. I don't think that the margin will be 14% nationwide. But I will say that it is very telling that the numbers are roughly around this time reflect the overall popular vote. I will say that they probably, again, will still narrow down. But it is just very interesting that the Democratic Party roughly performs the same way they do based off the data that is held, today. If we're talking about that Clinton +3 margin, she ended up winning by 2% nationwide in 2018. The Democrats led by 7.6%, ended up winning by 8%. 7.6% today, a year ago, 2 years ago. So in 2020, if it does follow the trend, it should be good news for the Democratic Party. However, I do expect things to narrow up just because of October surprises and things such as that as we proceed through the campaign season. But again, nothing really is spelling out good news for President Trump. He is starting to dwindle down into 39% of voters, 37% of voters. While Joe Biden may not be getting a majority in all of these polls, 47% looks a lot better than 39%. Or than 37%. When we're taking a look at Biden's numbers, he is continuing to increase his lead nationwide, and Donald Trump's approval rating is taking a hit. A couple of days ago, Donald Trump's approval rating, according to this, was 43%. When I made this video talking about it, 42.6, which rounds up to 43. It has dropped 2 points, but again, that 2 points makes all the difference. When Biden was only leading by 6, and now he's leading by 8 nationwide, it is important to note, because Hillary Clinton lost by the narrowest of margins. In terms of all of those states, less than 1%, moving back over into her column, could have won her the election. The Democratic Party needs to minimally improve, and they're drastically improving based off their numbers. It looks like the generic ballot even is going to take an even better hit for the Democratic Party, which is going to be, a better position for the Democratic Party, which I don't think is going to be too good for them, for the GOP. What we're talking about, I was trying to find the generic ballot numbers. I guess I can't. Okay. I know they're on here somewhere, but 538 wants to be weird. Oh, it's probably right on the homepage. But it's just not going to end up being good news for President Trump. When we look at this, 41% approval rating nationwide, continuous projections of the COVID-19 model, which will 100% go into Election Day. And then we talk about the overall race for Congress, I guess you could say generic ballot polling data. The Democrats are starting to break away into what could possibly be a 9-point lead nationwide. They have around an 8-point lead, which is actually reflective of what we saw in the 2018 midterm elections. While this actually hasn't hovered much, I will say that the Democrats are starting to break away and minimally improve, but improving nonetheless amongst these margins. And again, the smallest of margins decided the 2016 election. So any type of, how minimal, it doesn't matter, improvement for the Democratic Party should be noted, because Donald Trump is working with an electorate that, number one, barely elected him in 2016. 306 to 232 seems like a big amount, but when you take a look at the margins, that's what truly matters. Joe Biden will have to outperform Hillary Clinton by literally 1%, the easiest percentage to do out of all of them. And I will say that Joe Biden is probably going to do a little bit better than that. When we take a look at all of these numbers now, it's not just this. Numbers in Michigan, Biden +12. Yes, a Biden +7 margin, but again, when you take a look at when this poll was done, between May and June 2nd. So the numbers definitely have changed since then, which is why there's a huge influx of polling data here. When you're talking about the overall average, it has improved for Joe Biden. A lot of this data is actually now outdated just because of the number of things that are happening right now. There's, little to no chance that people have seen the full effect of everything that's happening in the country, whether it's the COVID-19 pandemic or the protests and riots happening around the country. A lot of people weren't answering these questions with that in mind because it wasn't happening. Keep in mind, when these polls are released on June 3rd, that means they were pretty much done sometime around the end of May. So they had enough time to be released and sorted through and making all of their information sorts and submitting it to Real Clear Politics. But when we're looking at the overall numbers here, they should definitely improve for Joe Biden, and they are already looking very good for him in a number of key states. I do think that this, again, is going to inspire turnout. We are seeing it now in Georgia. They are having a primary, and the results will be released tomorrow. That'll likely be a video. I think we should talk about it because the Democratic Party went from being, in 2016, in terms of primary turnout, 38% to 62% for the Republicans. Now it's 49%. they have increased by 11% statewide based off their 2016 primary turnout. That is insane. The numbers look good for the Democratic Party. It looks like they're going to have a number of pretty important primary numbers being released tomorrow. And that all comes as a result of an enthusiastic African-American base and turning on the Republicans' suburban base. These suburb voters that voted for Mitt Romney and John McCain that were turned off by Donald Trump in 2016, but just enough of them voted for him to land him an election win in 2016, they may not be too supportive in 2020. A lot of these numerous minority voters, not just African-American voters, minority voters are outraged by what Donald Trump is saying on Twitter, what he's putting out in terms of his statements, and the Biden campaign is eating it up. I mean, they are taking this and using it for their own benefit, and that's just a simple campaign. And I think that Donald Trump right now, even though I said this will likely be his worst point in the general election, it is possible it gets worse from here. And I didn't think about that, a day ago, because of the fact that Donald Trump is doubling down on the things that he said nationwide, and the protests and the overall activities in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement are not dying down. The energy is going to be there. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted over a year. A lot of these things that people are talking about in terms of social reform, a lot of the protests that are occurring nationwide, a lot of Republicans at least, are counting on this being only a week-long thing, 2-day-long thing. The police will kick all of these people out by the time they're done protesting. But I don't think that's the case. I really think that America is continuing to be outraged. And the amount of ads and, campaign messages being put out by the Biden campaign and, the Lincoln Project and Republicans for Biden, whatever group it may be, it's all negative for President Trump. It's being accurately reflected in his approval rating. Americans are starting to trust Trump a little bit less in his popular vote numbers, starting to dwindle into a possible 8-point margin for Vice President Biden, which would be absolutely astonishing for the Biden campaign. It would be very surprising to see any type of margin like that in the near future anyway. The generic ballot looks like it's shaping up to be the exact 2018, in fact, larger than that numbers. So, again, President Trump is bringing down the races here. I know I was supposed to talk about down ballot races, but I think that actually deserves to be another video to talk about the effect of the coattails on the presidency and look at historical context in 2012 and 2008. In 2016, of course, but the last time there was a Democrat on the ballot that won. I want to mention that as well because it could impact Joe Biden and Democrats if Joe Biden is to win the election versus Donald Trump. So, again, that's a time for another video, but I just wanted to update you guys on the data that we have right now. I know it's very recent, but again, this landscape and this election is shaping up every single day, and I do think that updates may come as quickly as a day or a week. So, again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please consider joining on my YouTube channel. That's just for additional perks. You can go ahead and click it and see the video introducing that. And I will see you all tomorrow.